Hey, Closet Busters, come on and gather around. It's time once again to kick down those closet doors of life. We're here to escape our BS, explore our fears, and elevate our self-expression. I'm your host, Rick Clemens, bold move expert and coming out coach, and I'm going to take you to the party, the pulpit, the wake, and back to the party of living your life uncloseted. So come on, grab hold of yourself and get ready to step out, step up, and step into living your truth as we explore more stories, tips, and tricks for living your life uncloseted. Now let's get to the show. Hey, Closet Busters and bold move makers. It is time once again for Life Uncloseted. I'm Rick Clemens, your host, bold move expert. And you know what? Sometimes we just don't know how to frickin' communicate. You know, we all hear about this communication thing, but do we actually really listen? When we say that communication is key, yet, sometimes that communication piece keeps us playing small and not making the bold moves in life that we really, truly want to make. And what happens then is we step into a place of, well, if I actually say what I want to say, it's kind of scary. And then we find ourselves being held back. So it's time to stop that bullshit and step into a state of being, I don't know, I guess what my guest would call really, truly fearless communicators. It's time for us to really have something to say and to realize that we need to unlock our voices and unleash the stories within us. And my guest is a friend of mine who I met a couple of years ago. His name is Eduardo. And I would describe him as kind of the king of he's the king of step ball change. He's a quick-witted artist. And he's just a guy that's really good at this communication thing. So I'm inviting him to join us on the other side of that closet to have some fun and really help you learn how to communicate fearlessly. Hello, darling. Welcome to Life Uncloseted.
Hello.
Hello. Here we are. We are now. King. And he loves to sing everything too. So you guys are in for such a freaking treat today. I can't wait.
Oh my gosh.
And when the two of us get together, we are truly out of the closet in a big, bold, gay way. So
gayest thing ever.
Yeah, exactly. So for those of you who are maybe not used to the whole gay side of Life Uncloseted, you're about to get a full dose of it. So anyway, let's kind of dive in here, girl. So let's start right from, I don't know, where should we start? Maybe we should start about...
Let's start at the very
beginning. Exactly. So what got you into this whole communication stuff? I mean,
it's actually really interesting. So, we are talking about Life Uncloseted.
Right.
So I go back to second grade. It was second grade, and it was show and tell. And I was very excited to share with my class this little gray stuffed animal seal that I called Sammy the Seal. Mm-hmm. And I was really excited. The teacher called me up. I stood in front of the class. And seals are mammals. They live in the water. They eat fish, and sometimes they're eaten by sharks. And I was clear. It was awesome. And then I went to sit down, and then I thought, that went really well. I have something else to share. So I stayed up there and I looked at the class and I said, I named him after someone in this class. And the moment I said that, the kids were not interested at all in the seal. But once I said that I named him after someone in the class, everyone became very interested. And then I said, I named him after Brett MacGyver. Not Sammy. There was no Sammy in the class. That was the name of the seal. I named him after Brett MacGyver, who was the blonde, popular boy who I had a crush on. All the girls had a crush on him, and so did I. And I basically outed myself in second grade in Miami, Florida in 1983.
Wow.
And it was terrifying. So the moment that I said that, I stood in front of the class. I remember to this day, I said, I could feel the words coming out of my mouth and everything that I wanted. The moment it landed, I just wanted to put it all back in and hide. And what I told myself in that moment is that when I'm standing up in front of a group of people to speak, it's not safe for me to be myself. Uh-huh. I have to hide, and it's dangerous.
Which is so much what happens to all of us.
Yeah.
It's from communicating.
And, for people on this call, for me, it was the pitch of my voice. People said I sounded like a girl, or it was girly or whatever. So anytime that I stood up in a space, whoever I was something that was worthy of ridicule. So I had to hide and imitate or avoid or so many things that I was always navigating. Mm-hmm. And then, part of my journey coming out, so I had the privilege of coming out at 18. I was born in 1977, and, I came out of the closet in 1995, which is before Ellen. It was, definitely not before Will and Grace.
Yep.
And, the tides were turning. I mean, there was definitely, it wasn't the zeitgeist of Ellen and Will and Grace. It was definitely like right before that.
Yep.
And so much of my journey coming out has been like embracing the full expression of who I am, not just in thought, but also who that is in front of people. Because if we look at the root of it, my biggest fear growing up was that when I spoke, people would think that I was gay.
Right.
And guess what? I was gay.
You are, exactly. And I think that's the thing that so many of us go through, whether it's that we're gay or if we say something, somebody's going to think, oh, that's who this person is. And that suddenly shuts down our voice. It shuts down our ability to share ourselves. All of this starts to happen. And I know for most people who are gay, lesbian, bi, trans, whatever that is the biggest fear is if I use my voice, if I speak, they're going to know this piece of me.
They're going to know the truth.
Right.
And what there is to navigate. So for me, like, it's really a conversation about my own internalized homophobia, because like if I'm standing now as a gay man who's been out for over, 20 years, like, does it really work to still have that fear that in my speaking, they would think that I'm gay? And it's so interesting because one of my biggest challenges, and I'm a public speaking coach. I have my own public speaking coaching business. But the whole idea is of what it means to be fearless is not that we get rid of fear, because it's not going anywhere. It's one of our four core emotions as human beings. It's like, fear is actually really useful. There's rational fear, which is like, I'm going to die. And then there's irrational fear, which is like, I'm going to stand up in front of 5 people and speak, And like my biggest fears are going to comment on something which is actually true. So
isn't that interesting though, that our fears are almost always about doing something that's true?
Yeah. They're going to discover
crazy.
Something.
Yeah. I remember when you and I first met, when we did the Bermuda retreat together. So we both were part of a team that did a retreat for men. And there was that little bit of feeling, at least for me, I don't know for you, but probably to some degree, as the group started to arrive, and this was gay men and straight men, there were certain guys that started to show up that I felt the little gay Rick going, oh, I almost felt like I was back in high school a little bit around some of the straight guys going, okay, are they going to be okay with this? Even though I was one of the facilitators, you were one of the facilitators, some of this never goes away. And I actually felt my voice begin to do what we do. So I'm going to drop the voice. I'm going to be a little more butch here.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to watch the hand gestures. And then I'm like, screw that. That's not who I am. I'm going to be me.
Yeah, totally.
And I think this is that piece that we all get caught in when we talk about communicating, because it's not just the words. If everything begins to happen, our body language changes, the way we stand, the way we communicate. I know I use different words in different situations when I'm like, okay, I'm not sure I feel safe. So I'm not going to say, girl, it's like, it's just an interesting space to be. And I know this is part of what you help people get really comfortable with is who they are in their essence. So that comes across in the work they do as speakers.
Because what happens is, if not, like, something's off. Like, we can read inauthenticity like a mile away. It's like,
absolutely.
Like, you're like, that smells bad. It smells rotten. It doesn't seem true. That person's hiding something. Or they're a fake, or they're a phony. Like, I don't believe it. And it's your gut. It's your instinct. You can also trust children.
Oh, God, yes.
Children are the best bullshit readers. They're just like, no, I don't buy it. Don't buy it at all.
Yeah. So where do you think we lose that, though? I'm so glad you brought that up, because somewhere along the way, we lose that bullshit meter from our childhood.
But what I think happens is we start trying to conform. And there's a powerful word that's introduced, which is no. And no, you can't do that. No, you can't say that. No, you can't be that. No, you can't have that dream. No, you can't accomplish that. No, you're not good at that. No, you'll never be good at that. No, that person's better at you than that. Don't pursue that dream. Don't pursue that goal. You're going to fail. All of that. And the point of it is, that could be some other human being's opinion, or it's something that you believe about yourself, right? So it's like a limiting belief.
Yeah,
you buy into it and you believe it. And then you're like, oh, that's true. Like, I will never have that, or I'll never achieve that. And then we just become a little muted, and what happens is that there's a feeling that is accompanied with it's like me being authentic. So me speaking honestly and standing up in front of a group of people and saying, I'm naming my seal after Brett MacGyver in a high-pitched voice, and I like running around doing cartwheels and singing show tunes in second grade. There was like, that behavior is not appropriate. And it's not that behavior is not appropriate, it just didn't conform to what my parents or people thought the behavior should look like for a young boy at that age. And guess what? I'd be doing it anyway. Like, that's what I get to do now, And what's so interesting is that and it happens primarily in corporate situations where I feel like there's a different contract and expectation of behavior, and I still show up in the way that I show up authentically. And frankly, if someone's not willing to deal with it, then they're not my person.
Exactly.
You don't want me in the room. And the point is that whenever I lead in that way, authentically, vulnerably, as my own self-expression, people can't get enough of it.
So why do you think it's so hard for someone to admit they're not my person? I love that you brought that up.
Because we're committed to some conversation about rejection as some proof of what we believe about ourselves.
Yep.
So it's some validation, it's some negative reinforcement of some belief you have, which is, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not attractive enough, I'll never belong, I don't deserve, all of that.
Well, all of that is the essence of what you've already brought up too, is that no is such a powerful thing. So if you go from no to not, it's just as powerful. And oftentimes I think we forget how powerful yes is. We get so hung up on no is the more powerful human reaction, and it diminishes the power of yes.
Correct.
And it also diminishes the power of letting no be a really powerful word in a good way. Shonda Rhimes, her book, A Year of Saying No or Saying Yes, kind of goes through this whole thing. She used to say no, 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 no. And that power of her saying no is actually what diminished her ability to see herself as who she was. And the moment she started turning the corner and said, okay, I'm going to commit to a year of saying yes to things, stuff that scared the shit out of her, is when she really started to thrive. Maybe I'm talking Shonda Rhimes, who, creator of, Grey's Anatomy.
The Practice.
All that stuff. And when you hear somebody like that, put it into the lens of no can be powerful in a good way, but yes can be even more powerful when you allow the yeses to present themselves.
And there's a word after the yes, which is and. Yes. And it's like noticing where in your life are you a no but.
So break that down, because I know it. You and I come from very similar backgrounds, and we've used the yes and a lot. But for the listeners, I'd love for you to take them a little bit deeper into that yes and practice, because it's really beautiful.
Yeah. So yes and comes from the world of improvisation and comedy. And in order for improvisation to work, and if you think about the space of creativity or collaboration, like whenever you're in a room with people and you're having a conversation, things are flying, just get what happens when somebody says no. It's like deflating, and there are people around you who may be like total no's. You may be a no person, and just get like how people show up around you, because like you're a decliner, like you're always a decline, and in the space of yes and what's open is possibility. So, and what's also there's an acknowledgement. So instead of being quick to say no, like you can have someone contribute something, and instead of completely and totally diminishing and what's the word?
Well, it's the making them feel like they don't bring something to the table.
To the table, right? Instead saying, I really got that. And, then you can build upon something. So no like puts a cap and creates an opening. And just think about where you put caps in your life and where there are openings, and it's like, where is it that you're looking to create and maintain more space for an opening? So that could look in your job, that could look in relationships. Some people in relationships are a no.
Well, I definitely know you and I both can relate to this. And so we're gonna go down the gay men's route a little bit here, because I think it's a great place to kind of showcase this yes and. Us gay men love, just say, oh, we just so want to be in a relationship. And then the first thing we do is go, oh, but I can do it with him. I can't do that with that. And it's suddenly like, okay, so there's so many no's coming up about who you can or can't be with, instead of going, well, he's attractive and he's not really the kind of person I would date. And he could be someone there's so many opportunities when you put the and into play instead of, no, that one's definitely out of. Now, I'm not saying, okay, now guys go out there and suddenly, okay, say yes and to every guy that's out there. That doesn't serve you either. There are some boundaries that, you got to go with what you like. But I think gay men are really, and, I'll probably get some hate mail about this, what I'm just saying, but gay men are probably an epitome of saying no based on superficial things.
And there's fear.
And there's so much fear. Yes.
There's so much fear. It's fear of rejection, fear of not being enough. Yeah. And ultimately what you're doing is like the no is like based around some projection or manifestation of you.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? It's based on our experience too. I mean, Oh my God, in second grade, Eduardo revealed himself to be this little gay boy. Oh my God, that set up so many years of fear probably in your life for what is yet to come.
Yeah. Or rejection or fear of like being too much or being seen or, and it's interesting. It's like, that which, and I think this is something for gay men, which we struggle with, because I think at the root of homophobia is misogyny, that there is something about who we are as the feminine part of the masculine, like the way we look down upon feminine gay men. Like we love our drag queens at the event, but then like, what do we like look at? How do we look at gay men that are feminine? Mm-hmm. And it's not like there's like judgment against them. There's this whole like butch, cult of masculinity, and it's fucked up.
It is fucked up. Well, and let's bring this into the current conversation in our society right now about the Me Too movement. I've actually heard some people say, well, why did it take these women so long to do this? Now there's suddenly a shame that it's being put on them, that they're the reason this was a problem. They didn't come forward when they should have. And it's very similar. It's all this started to unravel. I'm like, okay, now we're finally getting something into the mainstream that actually is a direct mirror reflection of the LGBTQ experience. We didn't come out of the closet because it wasn't safe. The same thing is now happening with the Me Too movement. Those women and men that have also experienced this, but mostly women, they could not come out of the closet of sexual abuse, of sexual predator, all of that stuff because it wasn't safe to do it.
Yeah, they didn't feel safe.
And that's where the communication piece starts to come forward, and where the work you're doing is so great about teaching people about this fearless piece of communication. Is it easy? Hell no. But when you realize, if I don't allow myself to speak my truth, to say what I need to say, to use my story, to open my voice, I'm not doing anything for myself, and I'm sure the heck not having an impact on society.
And the more specific you are in your sharing, right?
Yep.
There's a way in which we as human beings can relate to it. So ultimately what we're doing when you're sharing, when you're speaking, is you're activating mirror neurons in other human beings, right? That are triggering, that are like creating empathy and connection. So part of like fearlessly communicating is actually standing in your authenticity and your vulnerability and sharing, not about you, but about how what you're saying can be of service to somebody else.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think is a solution for, and I don't know why as you were speaking this showed up in my own head, is you can hear somebody speaking, okay, and you can be having this, interaction with them, and then suddenly you're tuning them out. So is that more about connection? Is it more about they're not communicating in a way that makes it something that you can connect to? Is it, because that's going to happen.
Yeah. So I think one of the things, so it's so interesting because we think about communication. It's not just speaking, but it's also listening. And most importantly, it's listening. Mm-hmm. So I think the first thing for you to check for is, where are you listening from?
Mm-hmm. That's a biggie.
Am I listening from generosity, or am I listening from judgment?
Mm-hmm. Or are you listening from what's in it for me?
Totally. Which is probably, sometimes that's generous and sometimes that's judgment.
Well, yeah, I think it can be both. It can be on both sides of the fence. And I think a lot of what's happening right now is, I'm going to bring it back to this aisle to front, is there's a lot of listening from judgment.
Totally.
There's no room for empathy. There's no room for compassion.
No.
There's only, this is this way and this is the way it is. And I'm raising my hand right now because I know I've been in this space too in the last year.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do this. Then when I step away and go, okay, if I can hear someone, then things start to change. At least let me listen and hear you. When I see this happening in the media and with different things, politics specifically, there's no room right now to feel like we're being heard.
Yeah.
And the other side of the fence, so to speak, is in the same space. They don't feel like they're being heard. In fact, right after everything happened with the election, I was having a conversation with one of my good friends who does a lot of TEDx events. She organizes some of the biggest ones on the East Coast. And I said, one of the TEDx talks I would love to do would be America just came out of the closet, because that's exactly what's just happened.
Yeah. And there are many spaces where people came out of the closet. I mean, people came out of the closet as activists.
Yep.
People came out of the closet as racists. People came out of the closet as sexist.
Yep.
And as, our dear Cindy Lauper says, and I see your true color.
Exactly.
And again, am I listening from judgment or am I listening from generosity?
But don't you think
there's a context? It's a challenge. It's like, it is exercise. It is an exercise.
Well, it is an exercise, and it's a muscle that's got to be worked.
It's a muscle to be worked. And it is of importance to me to understand why the other side thinks the way that they think.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really don't get it. And it's in my family.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all have family members who we're dealing with. We're just like, I just don't understand how we can be looking at the same thing. And I see purple and you see orange. Mm-hmm. And it's clear that whatever's happening is purple.
Yes.
Clearly, like, that is what's there. And you're telling me that it's not purple, it's a square. Do you know what I mean? It's like so not even in the realm of color. It's like a whole other planet.
Well, but it's like, what was it a year or so ago? The whole dress? Is it a gold dress, or what was it? A gold dress or a blue dress? I think it's the perfect metaphor for where we are right now.
And there's a context, and part of it is like, understand, like, if you understand that someone's communicating from a very specific context and a certain commitment, then there's some movement. But it's so interesting, because one of the things that I've been talking about recently has to do with this conversation of harmony. And if you think about the world, like, there's just no harmony. It's just like everyone's screaming at each other.
Right.
And, we spoke about this a little bit, but if you're going to look at like what's going to make a difference in creating harmony, it's actually the act of listening. Because what happens is, you imagine some chorus, you see like hundreds of people all singing, finding whatever note they can find, and they're holding that note and they're screaming that note as loud as they can. Mm-hmm. And who are the people who are listening for what's the note that's going to make the difference? Mm-hmm. To create harmony. Like, you can be on your note and I can be on my note, and there's a way for our notes to coexist in harmony. But we're not listening for harmony. We're listening for disruption. Mm-hmm. We're listening for disruption. We're listening for noise.
Right. Well, we're listening from our own ego. This is the way it is, and I need to be right. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to me that through all of this, and I'm going to kind of go back to the generosity and the judgment piece, in order to really understand, at least this is my interpretation, whether you're operating from generosity or judgment, is to start to look at the story. What's the story? What's your story? And so many people, I feel, are afraid to tell their story because that makes it very vulnerable. It puts them, as Brene Brown would say, it puts them in the arena.
Yeah.
So it's easier to, okay, I'm going to, whether you operate from generosity or judgment, if you're choosing to do it because of, well, I don't want to confront, I don't want to be in fear, I don't want to be in conflict, then you're really not telling the true story. You're not telling your story. And I know part of the work that you do is you help people learn to be courageous in their storytelling. In fact, for those of you listening, we have a link on the show page for you to go and visit Eduardo's free storytelling, courageous, stuff, all the downloads and everything. But where do they start? What's that very first step for someone who's really like, okay, I know I have something to say, but I don't know if I can.
It's so good. It's so good. So there are 3 C's. There are 3 C's, and I'll give you the first one.
Yes, don't give it all because I want them to go down.
I'm not going to give it all.
I know it's rich and yummy, and I want them to go taste it themselves without us giving it away. So
yeah. So the first one is to commit.
Mm-hmm.
To commit. And I think there's a conversation which is like, why are you called to speak?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so is there something like, why is it that you're called to speak? Like, why is it that you feel like this urge or this need to share this story? And there's something like the need is there. Like there's something very unique about your experience, and we will listen to it. We will listen to the uniqueness of your experience, because get that as human beings, what we have done as we develop language, as we told stories, we sat around fires and we created language and we told each other stories. It's how we invented like why we're here. It's in how we invented connection, you know, family member to family member, how we shared legacy and history, how we shared tradition. Like all of it originates with storytelling.
Yep. So
there's a profound story that you have to share. And like, what is your commitment? Like, why is it that you're telling the story? And for many of you who are, I'm assuming a lot of you on this call are queer, gay, lesbian, bi, transgender, there's something in the courage for us to stand in our story, which creates an opening for humanity for people and our family members who may not know who we are. So the act of coming out is itself a story. The courage of coming out is in itself a story. It's a triumph story. Mm-hmm. It's a triumph over the past. It's a hero's journey. Mm-hmm. It's in any classic structure. It could be your climax, or it could be an inciting incident, you know, that like propels a whole set of actions to happen. So like we understand the world through narrative and through stories, right? We're constantly devouring stories as human beings. It's a way that it gives us a way to parse and understand the world. So I would say the first thing for those of you who are interested in and excited to share, I'm saying that as a different word than to speak or to tell, but to share, because in sharing, it's an act of generosity, right? The first thing for you to do is to commit. Why is it that you want to speak? And then who are you interested in speaking to? Who's your audience?
But you can take this from that professional level too, to every day in your life. Why are you committed to sharing with someone?
Correct.
So for instance, I mean, when I had the conversation with my friend Tamsin about, you know, talking about, okay, America just came out of the closet. She said, yeah, that's an interesting topic, but she goes, I would love, and she's like I said, she's a TEDx organizer for Boston and a couple
for Harvard. I know.
Yeah. She's great. And she goes, you know, I'd really like something a little more juicy. And I said, well, you know, I think there'd be an interesting topic if I could do a talk around things I have in common as a gay man with the KKK, because there's interesting stuff there. And people would be like, seriously, this guy's actually going to, you know, put those two things in the ring together.
Yeah.
The bottom line is you always have a story to tell. As you were speaking through that, Eduardo, I was thinking every day it's about stories.
Absolutely.
Everything we do is about story, and becoming courageous enough to be in that space of fearless in your communication is realizing all we do is tell stories all day long.
Yep.
This podcast is just a story right now. In fact, I'm so glad you brought up that a lot of listeners may be queer. And this is why we have expanded this to start to bring in other people, because what I know in my heart and soul is this medium, this way of sharing, this is what the LGBTQ journey is like, is helping to help others see, oh my God, I'm really not that much different than them. When I want to leave my job, if I want to get out of a relationship, if I want to take that risk and on a whim say I'm going to sell everything and go travel the world, you are embarking on a coming out journey. And you are about to go make a bold move that everybody in some way is going to come up against you. Not everybody, but a lot of people may come up against you and go, you can't do that. You can't be that. What do you mean you're going to take off a year and go travel the world? How irresponsible is that? It's a coming out journey that every one of us has on a daily basis.
Yep.
So as we get to wrap up here, man, I'm curious if you could truly like leave without, you know, disclosing everything that you do so beautifully in your courageous storytelling stuff. But if you could really leave something for people to like latch onto and say, okay, this is how I can become committed. What would be the advice you would give someone to like step into the arena and become very fearless in their communication?
Well, I would say is find a safe space to start sharing. So, like, I would say, don't jump and throw yourselves to the wolves.
Right. Yeah.
I had a client of mine who was giving a TEDx talk in Mexico, and we crafted this whole speech. It was very vulnerable. She was sharing. It was very authentic. And then she went to two people, one of whom was a gay man, and she was like, I want you to be really harsh with me. And he was really harsh with her. And then she was like, I don't want to do the speech. I want to quit. I want to let's go. And I was like, sweetheart, don't tell a catty queen to get catty with you. And expect it not to be hurtful.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, that's what you asked for, and now you're reacting to that. So snap out of it. So I would say one is find safe spaces willingness to share. So it may be a community center. It may be like Toastmasters. It may be like, any space where you feel safe to share about, maybe it's at the local community center. There may be or storytelling workshop, or like sometimes people have like a moth-like story hour at, local community spaces, at bookstores. So I would just start going over there and listening to how people share and craft.
Yes.
And then
I think the piece that goes with that is to realize, just because you decide you're going to share stories, just because you decide, and I take it down quickly to like something that every one of us does every day, just because you feel like you need to say something to, your spouse or your kids or a boss or a friend, doesn't mean you have to go do it in some big, bold way. Think about, what's the simplest way for me to share what I need to share? Don't make it some huge thing. And I totally get what you're saying here about, here she stepped out and she's like, okay, I'm going to ask for this. Well, it kind of goes back to, be careful what you ask for.
Totally. Yeah.
It's
like, I want you to be brutal with me. And then they're brutal with you and they're like, fuck you.
Right. Yeah. And I just fall apart. Now I want to go.
How can it be so hard? How can it be so hard? It's because you told me to be brutal with you. So
exactly.
I'm going to be brutal with you. So I don't tend to be brutal with anybody, because it's like, I don't think that solves anything. So that's the first thing, is like find safe spaces and then start sharing. And then you'll start spreading your wings, find supportive environments, supportive spaces. And maybe for some people, if they're scared of being seen or heard, it's taking an acting class or taking a dance class or putting yourself, or taking an improv comedy class, or a stand-up comedy class, something that takes you out of your comfort zone by learning how to be comfortable being yourself in front of a group of people. And also anything that has you be a little foolish. Anything that has you experience yourself as a little foolish or a little silly or a little playful, for some people, that's like their worst nightmare. And there's a lot of freedom that comes in realizing that we're all protecting ourselves from looking like an asshole. And if you're the first to just be like, I'm a fucking asshole, and just like play and just be silly and playful, then all of a sudden it creates space for other people to show up as themselves. And that's one of the biggest gifts. I feel like, I've been called a molecule shifter. Because one of the things that I do, and if I brand myself as a fearless communicator, that when I walk into a space, that I am self-expressed.
Yes.
I am myself. I am authentic. I am true to myself. I have my specific sense of humor. I invent my own words. I have my own hashtags. I break out into song. It is authentic.
Yes, he breaks out into song quite frequently. So if you're
all the time.
I knew if I said that, he would do it. So anyway, it's just so powerful to have you here and to share, because I think the biggest thing that I took away from getting to know you is there is a space for every one of us to be fearless. And I know you well enough and have spent enough time with you that I've seen the vulnerable side of Eduardo too, where there's like, okay, I'm not sure. But then in the uncertainty, to me, my perspective, in the uncertainty is where we're called to be our most fearless.
Absolutely. And it doesn't mean that you don't have fear.
Right.
You can still have the fear. The fear is there, but you can dance with it.
Absolutely.
Dance with it. You can lead it.
And if you need help with the dancing, he can help you with that too. He can
absolutely
kickball change and
I'm Cuban, so kickball change and all of it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rick, for having me. It's been such a joy to be on.
It's always a joy to spend time with you. And gosh, if they could actually see us together, they'd like, okay, we want more video of that.
Oh my God.
It's crazy. So and we kind of have we have this beautiful pitch that we can do. When he goes, I can go do a different octave, and we can just
yes.
So anyway, well, thank you so much for sharing yourself, for being yourself. Everything you'll need to connect with Eduardo will be on the show page, and I highly encourage you to check out his stuff. Get a little courageous. Make a commitment to becoming a fearless communicator. And
always remember to fear less, speak free, and love more.
Awesome. I think that's a beautiful place to wrap it up. And until the next time, go out there and keep stepping up, stepping out, and stepping into living your life uncloseted. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
And that's it. That's a wrap. Another episode of Life Uncloseted has come to an end. But don't worry, we'll be back in just a couple of days with another episode with new guests, new tips, new tricks, new wisdom about how you can go live your life uncloseted. And you know what? A lot of people out there may not even know we exist. So if you feel so compelled, share us. Tell people about it. Give us a rating and review on iTunes. Share it from your phone. Wherever you can, spread the word, because the more people that we reach, the better the planet will be when everybody is living their life uncloseted. I'm Rick Clemens, the host of the show, that big, bold move expert, and that guy that constantly wants to help people step out, step up, and step into living their life uncloseted. Have a great couple of days, everyone, and we will be right back with you very, very soon. Take care.